I'm Jasmine Moradi, and you're listening to the Queens of Tech podcast, a podcast series about raising the voice of workplace champions. 60 plus questions in around 30 to 40 minutes with women of color, non-binary, and transgender influencers about their journey into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I started the Queens of Tech podcast initiative in May 2022 because I would like to retain more women of color, non-binary, and transgenders in the tech industry. Talent is out there, but our work environment needs to improve for all to feel safer, stay authentic, and to be valued for our contributions. My vision is to raise the workplace ecosystem for all in tech by killing the imposter syndrome, stopping bad behavior, and increasing equity opportunities. Each podcast talk is built around 60 plus questions regarding upbringing, education, career path, DIB, and future advice. My mission is to bridge the gap between schools and workplaces by getting into the heart of my guest's personal life and career journey to inspire other girls, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders to unleash their full potential to reach top leadership roles in the tech industry. My goal is to raise the voices of tech champions around the world and together with companies, investors, and politicians, raise the challenges and opportunities around equity, inclusive, diversity, and belonging in our workplaces. Enough is enough. I would like to enforce companies to build a sustainable, inclusive culture to retain diverse talent so we keep the workforce power equity to continue building future diverse and inclusive products. Representation matters. Your voice matters. In this episode, I'm very excited to welcome my guest, Tech Queen Cosima Meyer, Senior Data Scientist at SAP. Hi, Cosima.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's an honor. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Winter is coming in. It's a great season of the year, so all good here.
Yes, I'm longing for the Christmas markets. They are so beautiful.
Yeah, same here.
But before that, let us dig into your journey into STEM. Hope you're ready for the quiz of Tech 60 plus questions.
Yes, I can't wait.
Let's warm up with a few fun facts about you. How would you describe your personality in 3 hashtags?
I would say curious, supportive, and outdoor.
How would you summarize your life in 3 sentences?
It's a conflict researcher turned data scientist, thinking here a lot about bias and how to build sustainable products. I also enjoy running and traveling in my free time, and I'm always up for good coffee and food.
What kind of music stimulates and motivates you the most?
In contrast to the weather that we're having outside, it's more something like funky that reminds me of summer, like parcels, where you always have a guarantee for a good vibe.
What is your personal motto?
There's always something positive in it.
What is your favorite book?
It's Momo by Michael Ende. It's a German author and it's a child's book. It was one of the first books I remember reading. It's about a girl who fights some kind of mysterious forces who are stealing people's time, and that shows that you should value human connection over her productivity in a way.
What is your favorite podcast?
It's actually 2, because I enjoy listening to something that brings in a different perspective and kind of brings something critical in it in a way. So one of them is 30. It's a German podcast by 3 women talking about their lives, bringing in different perspectives. And the other one is Tech Won't Save Us, English-speaking podcasts, where the host reflects on different tech developments in a critical way.
Mac or PC?
Mac. It's the first I bought, and I'm sticking with it.
Say something interesting about you that most people don't know.
I used to work at an amusement park when I was at school for 4 to 5 years at the entrance. Yep. And I went there a lot.
And you still go there?
No, because I moved.
What is your hidden talent?
Thought about that a lot. I would say some sense of creativity. Besides that, not so many hidden talents.
If you were going to write a book about your life, what would the title be?
Probably something like self-organizing gadgets and how to incorporate them in your running life. I'm not perfect here, but I keep pushing myself and then realize it's not working and tried something new.
Great start. Now let us dig deeper. Our childhood has a profound effect on our adulthood. Our early experiences shape our belief about ourselves, others, and the world. Now I want to discover your childhood. Where did you grow up and how did it shape your early experiences?
I grew up all over Germany. So we basically moved like a lot when I was a kid. When I was 2, when I was 5, when I was 12, and so on. We really went zigzag through Germany. And it kind of showed me that it's not the physical home that is important, but it's the people that surround you. And it also keeps me, in a way, not pushing, but it started some kind of hunger and restlessness when I'm staying for too long in one place. I want to have a change. Really positive here.
And what was your dream job when you were a child?
So I always dreamed of living on a farm and being a veterinarian,
What was your favorite subject in school?
art and geography,
What was your least favorite subject?
chemistry.
What is your earliest memory of technology and the arrival of the internet?
I remember like when I think I was 6 or 7, my uncle who was really fond of technology, he showed me a computer game on the computer. And then like in the early 2000s, late 90s, we got internet at home and a family computer. And I remember it was really slow and really, really expensive.
And which were the three first technology gadgets you owned yourself, and how did it influence your interest in tech going forward?
Before we had this kind of family computer, and we had that until I was like, I think 17 or so. And then I got the retired family computer. I wanted to do something cool there. I thought partitioning would be a perfect thing, putting Linux on one part of the partition, keeping Windows on the other one, then accidentally writing it all to the wrong one, overwriting all my images, like big, big, big chaos. Realizing backups are in fact important and you should do them, plus teaching you a lot of things for the future memories, being stick with that one. And then I don't really have that much technology, to be honest. I was more like a kid going outside. I probably had an MP3 player, but that's it.
During that period of time in your life, who was your female role model growing up, and what about her inspired you?
Probably quite typical, but I would really say it's my mom because she always told me and she showed me how it works, that you can do everything if you want it and you just have to keep pushing for it. It's really inspiring.
So, based on everything you said, how do you think where you grew up and the school you went to and the generation you come from influence your education and career choice?
I grew up in a couple of small cities and I always wanted to see the world and wanted to see how different people can be, how they interact together. So that's why I went as far as away as possible in a way when studying, because I didn't want to do that close to where my parents live, but I wanted to be on my own. And I also went abroad, which is not a lot of people in my family have done that before. I'm more like the generation who started doing that. And I also went down a path studying political science that is not like the security haven in a way for your job profession. So that was also something I would say atypical. But then in the end, I mean, you realize nothing goes as planned. I wanted to become a journalist, didn't turn out, but I kept following my passion. So I think like the way my childhood was and also like kind of the way where I'm coming from kept pushing me to follow my passion, to discover something new.
Very interesting. I could recognize myself in that. And I also wanted to be a journalist. So let us dig into your career. But before that, I'm going to read two quotes. First one: how does the universe expect me to choose a career path at 16? I can't even choose what I want for dinner. Second, Abraham Lincoln said, I quote, the best way to predict your future is to create it. So I want to know the choices behind your career path. Where and what did you end up studying at university?
I picked political science at the University of Mannheim, which is in southern Germany. I studied that because I wanted to like kind of understand the world and I wanted to have the combination of economics and political science. I was able to study it here and that kind of teaches you how society works, how people behave, and you can go in so many different directions with these studies, which is, I think, really nice.
When what influenced you to get into your exact choice and field, data scientist and also tech?
That's a good question. It was more accidentally like when I started studying political science, as I said, I wanted to become a journalist. Then on the way, I decided, well, journalism is probably my thing. I'm more into science. I wanted to become a researcher. Then I realized, well, becoming a researcher, it's not the super stable future. It's unpredictable. And the paper you write, even though you spend so much time writing and researching and doing these things, only X amount of people are going to use them. And then while I was doing my PhD, I discovered that open source software development is actually a really nice place to be and that people are actually using what you're creating. And I decided, okay, some kind of product development could be the thing that I want to go to. So this is kind of the path, how I ended up where I am right now.
And what professional roles have you had before that led you to where you are today?
The kind of direct roles before that one was basically researcher, lecturer, both in one, and also some kind of data science consultant, like freelance plus at the university. And then I transitioned into data science.
And how did you transition into tech?
That was also more like by accident because I remember when it was COVID, there were a couple of conferences and you could submit your CV or your resume to those conferences. I did that because I thought, like, why not? I mean, give it a try. And then one of these companies that was, I think, one of the main sponsors of the conference, they reached out and said, like, hey, your profile looks interesting. Do you want to work with us? So I started freelancing and then this is actually a cool place. So that's basically how it started.
I love the quote, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. So, Cosima, what is the biggest challenge you've encountered so far in your role as a data scientist and how did you end up tackling it?
I think it's fighting stereotypes. Being a woman in the field, and like we have two components there. Obviously, the tech industry is unfortunately not really balanced. So you're entering the field as a woman who does not have the like strict tech background in a sense that I study computer science or anything, having to fight a bit harder to be perceived as competent as someone else. It's a daily struggle sometimes. And then on the other hand, as a data scientist, you're also somewhere in between. You're not the software engineer who is per se building the product, even though I enjoy doing that. You typically don't have these kind of competencies out of the pocket that people would credit you with. So you have to fight for this kind of respect in a way that you are capable of doing that. And then at the same time, data science, sometimes you cannot explain models. And then you have black box models. And then it's like, it's magic or I don't trust it or something like that. So you're fighting on two ends in a way.
So, what do you wish everybody understood about your role as a data scientist?
I think it's actually the second part that I said, like, it's not magic. It's numbers based. It's all statistics. And even though there are black box models, we're moving more and more toward the direction where you can explain what is going on and what models are doing.
And what is it that you love about working in the tech industry?
That you have the chance to dive into different topics. You can apply your knowledge to like a variety of fields. You're not focused on one specific field, and that you have like kind of complex processes that you can abstract in a way and then optimize and support people with the products you're building.
Oprah Winfrey said, I quote, think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is not a stepping stone to greatness. So, what has by far been your biggest achievement in your career as a data scientist?
Putting things into production, because then you kind of realize people are actually using that. And that's the thing that frustrated me the most about academia, that probably not that many people were reading your papers. I mean, you could also argue the paper quality potentially, but it's really like you're writing for a small circle of people. And if you're building a product, it's really nice if you see like the user numbers, the user feedback, and all those things. That's a nice bonus.
What would you say is the biggest factors help you become successful? What are your success habits that you can share with us?
It's never you alone. It's always the network around you. And on a personal level, I deeply value teamwork and those networks that come with that, where you have your supporters then who champion you to where you need to be at that point in time. It's never you alone. It's always a team job, and the network is your biggest asset.
That is true, but how do you measure your own performance knowing that you're successful or not?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I started doing that during my PhD, actually. I then listened to one of these, I think it was a webinar or something where someone was talking about OKRs. And I was like, hey, this is cool. It's like a quarter project. You can think of your goal. And then I basically like kind of derived or took from it what I need for myself, set my personal little goals. And I do that in my work life as well. So I don't over engineer it. I keep it as simple as possible because I mean, over engineering, then nothing gets done. But so basically for me, a success is if I reach my personal goal, may it be on a work level or may it be on a private level. I like thinking big, but for those goals, I do it in like manageable small bits and pieces. And then sometimes life comes in, but typically those things should be manageable. And then after like a quarter of the year, you check in and see like, did I do that? If yes, perfect. Clap on your shoulder. You have done a good job.
And with success comes failures, as we know. What is your biggest failure in your career and your role as data scientist, and what did you learn from it?
I have to go back to academia because it also applies to the data science field. Sometimes the profession you're doing is not the right one at that specific point in time. And even though you wish for it to be, like when I was a researcher, I really wanted to stay there. I really wanted to be there. But then, even though I had an offer for a postdoc, I decided it's not the right one. It's not the right place for me to stay, and it's not the right place for me to be. And this kind of brings it back to the personal model. I really think there's always something positive in it. So even though you're realizing the way you're currently doing is not the right one at that specific point, having the courage, being in a way also brave enough to decide, no, it's not the right one, is something that is really valuable to learn, but every time hard to decide.
It's a great insight to get to, right?
Yes, I agree, but a hard one.
Absolutely. Let's now jump into the influence of mentor, role models, champions, and sponsors. For our listeners, role models can consciously or subconsciously be a powerful force in our lives. In addition, champions can stand up and advocate for us and open up the world of possibilities. Sponsors match emerging talent with leaders and influential employees who can help us ahead in our careers. So, Cosima, do you have a mentor, champion, or a sponsor today?
I don't have a specific one right now, but I have a group of fantastic people around me who really they think of me at the right time, and they put me where I need to be.
And history shows that it's been more common for men having mentors, champion, sponsors in business than women. So, how important do you think it's to have a mentor, champion, and sponsors through one's career?
Extremely important because at each and every stage of your career, those champions or sponsors, they don't only put you where you need to be, they don't only advocate for you when you're not doing it or when you can't probably sometimes do it, but it's also, at least for me, it's about sharing perspectives, giving some kind of guidance, having someone to talk to who has already had these experiences, who brings in a different background in a way. So having someone like that, it's extremely important at each and every stage of your career.
Let's now move on to leadership. Adina Friedman, President CEO of Nasdaq, said, I quote, empowering those around you to be heard and valued makes a difference between a leader who simply instructs and one who inspires. And Sheryl Sandberg, ex-COO of Facebook, said, I quote, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that the impact lasts in your absence. So, Cosima, what does leadership mean to you?
A lot. And in particular, it's the type of leadership that means a lot because you want to have a leadership where all team members are empowered to self-develop and a leadership style that enables them to become their best selves. You want to have a leadership where people have a lot of freedom, have a lot of trust to develop.
And what would you say distinguish a good leader from a bad leader?
For me, a good leader is someone who puts trust in the people and who enables them, while a bad leader is more about micromanaging people and having kind of the full control.
And how would you describe yourself as a leader?
From my personality perspective, I'm a quite structured person who likes structure a lot, but I'm also empathetic. So I can very much relate to what people kind of feel and go through and stuff like that.
And as a leader, what values do you prioritize the most?
Trust in others, trust from others in myself, and trust from myself in others.
And what leadership lessons have you learned that have shaped you into the leader you are today?
I would say these are three things. First, learn from others. You can always learn something from the team members. Then reflecting on what you like and don't like and applying these kind of styles to become the better leader that you would want to envision. So for instance, like this kind of micromanagement. And also, even though trust is really, really important for me from both perspectives, I also know how hard it is in a way. I tend to be with myself to be a perfectionist. So letting this go can be really hard, but it is important because otherwise you will never have this kind of flourishing team or like group that you're working with.
What would you say are your 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses?
Starting with the strength, I would say I'm an optimistic, positive thinking person. I have creativity and also this kind of analytical way of thinking, the structured way of thinking. And when it comes to weakness, it's definitely impatience. I'm sometimes also too optimistic and sometimes think too big and too far ahead. And then I want things to happen really quickly. And then obviously impatience kicks in. And I also like to work for the community, meaning like outside work. I'm involved in different communities. And I tend to have a few too many side projects at times. So also too optimistic to think like, I can do that. No worries.
Let us now jump to the hottest topic in business today, workplace culture, unlocking the power of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Cosima, what do diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean to you personally?
For me personally, it's a lot of enriching exchange that comes with it.
And what do you consider being 3 to 5 signs of good company culture if you were to join a company tomorrow?
It's definitely open-mindedness, both on a leader perspective, but also team perspective, flat hierarchy, and a culture that values people over work. Because in the end, I mean, we're all humans and we should have processes in place where you can live your life.
And as a woman, what has been the most significant political or in culture barrier in your career, and how have you overcome these challenges?
Kind of goes back to what I said earlier. I think as a woman, you're often reduced to the fact that you're a woman. And then if you're kind of an optimistic woman, also got that as a feedback, you're someone who smiles and laughs a lot and is positive, which often then translate into being not competent, which is absolutely not true. I can guarantee you that. And I'm always surprised when people are like that, because why would you do that? And why would you think that way? But it is what you experience. And then you have to work hard and work even harder as someone else to kind of achieve your goals and to make your standing and to signal what you know and what you can do and how competent you are.
And how do you discuss DIB challenges such as salary gaps, promotion, maternity leave, etc., with your colleagues, peers, or end community?
I'm really like involved in different communities like Our Ladies, Pie Ladies, and there are like lots of discussions going on how to make things equal, fairer, more inclusive, how to work on those things. And it's really hard. And there are like stepping processes that go into the broader picture. I also had that at my previous employer where I was part of the diversity and inclusion task force. And here we work inside the company towards a more transparent promotion system where we were providing some kind of ready for promotion checklists to make promotion more transparent, to give people more guidance on to when are you ready for promotion? Hey, these are the checkboxes that people typically fulfill. So this should be also your kind of place now to say like, oh, I know I want to have my promotion, and to also give them kind of this kind of backup in a way to sort their things and to provide that to their managers. In the end, it's all about kind of active and transparent communications that you need to have inside communities, inside companies. All those things really matter here.
Great. So you have that experience. I would love to hear your take on that. There are many public and internal discussion about the barriers women of color, non-binary, and transgender individuals face from reaching higher position or receiving funding in the tech industry. So how have these issues affected you, and what is your advice on overcoming these roadblocks?
Yeah, it's definitely apply for funding, apply for scholarships, apply for awards, apply for whatever there may be. It's not if you think that you should get it, because then like people will not apply, because then there's a confidence thing that comes into play as well. No, you should put it differently. If you think this is a nice thing to have, if you think why not, give it a try and apply. And I've seen that as a jury member in the past. It's always worth applying. And the more you apply, obviously, the higher the likelihood that you will get something. And then the second one is network, because obviously no one fights the battle alone. And having some feedback, having some peers who support you, who forward you things that you haven't probably seen, some kind of funding application call or whatever, it's also important. So apply and network. Those are the two things.
Yes, and people apply, then get in, and there is said that today tech companies invest heavily in marketing, attracting women of color, non-binary, and transgender individuals. However, they're struggling to retain them. Articles show that women are leaving the tech industry. So, what is your best advice of strategies for how companies can work to build a stronger corporate culture that engages the IB?
I would say three things. First, we had that at IBM. It's called Treasure the Wild Duck. So value different things, different perspective, different opinions, different people coming in. So value diversity. So treasure the wild duck and really mean it by creating inclusive and welcoming environments, ensure fair promotions. So some kind of transparency here, and also living new work that allows more flexibility in terms of life balance, work-life balance, however you want to call it.
That is great. However, what would you say are the key challenges of implementing a DIB culture in a workplace and the tech industry today?
I'm coming from a political science background. I know how institutions are important. So I would say here as well, some written rules and processes are the key thing that people can adhere or have to adhere to.
And why do you think it's important for more women of color, non-binary, and transgender to join the tech industries today?
To have this kind of more diverse workplace. Because if you want to build a fair and sustainable product, you really have to have different perspectives. If you build a product but don't have women at the table, for instance, or people with a different background or something like that, but only have like a really homogeneous, one-sided perspective on things, you will likely neglect other parts of the society because you only have your own exclusive view, and you can build the product with the best means and intentions intended, but still not succeed if you don't have different perspectives. And I know how difficult it is, because where should you start and where should you end? What's enough and what's not enough? But each and every step we make towards like bringing more people and bringing more kind of different backgrounds, bringing more perspectives to the table is one positive step at a time.
And how do you think companies will benefit from not just having women of color, non-binary, and transgender middle-level leaders, but actually higher gender representation at C-suite level and boardrooms with a voice?
Because these are places where you can significantly influence decision making and also write those rules I was talking about earlier, and to strategically then position also the company. So having a more inclusive environment must necessarily also be represented in a higher level like C-suite to drive some change and to positively in the end influence this environment we're working in.
Once again, great advice. And I'm going to challenge you again. Why do you think is the main reason we still see few women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders in the tech leadership roles and as startup founders still today?
From a personal perspective, I think it's two things: self-confidence. I'm also facing that a lot, plus time. You have your life, you have specific time that you have in your everyday that you can invest in things, and then added with the self-confidence part where you probably struggle a bit and think maybe, maybe not. And also, I think it's probably a different way for a woman to self-promote yourself. So from a personal perspective, those are three things that I think come into play why there are so few women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders in the tech industry. And I think by changing the work environment and by being more inclusive in a way, and by having these kind of environments where more people can flourish and that are not specifically or unspecifically tailored towards one specific or more or less one specific type of work ethic, we can hopefully change this kind of status quo that we're currently facing.
And there is another challenge, and that is that data reveals a concerning trend of low funding rates for startups led by women, with only 1 to 2% of the funding directed towards women in the tech industry. Black and Latina women in particular receive less than 1%. What factors do you believe contribute to this imbalance, and what strategies can be activated to increase funding for women-led startups?
What we need to do is, I think, having some kind of specific funding budget for women-led startups, because sometimes you really just have to have a leap start to close up. We've seen that in other fields, and I think this is actually here one thing that comes into play.
And how much would you say that the tech industry has changed regarding DIB since you joined?
So I think luckily I joined during a higher wave of DEIB. So there was already a more diverse culture there. I mean, still looking at the numbers and what we just talked about, there's so much more to do.
And looking back on your own career and journey, what one thing would you have changed in your working environment to break the bias?
Standing up for yourself and ask more for yourself. So pushing harder and having the confidence of doing it actually.
And now looking forward, what actions will you take as a leader to reduce bias and improve DIB for the next generation in tech?
So I've done that internally in the company, but I've also done it externally. I mean, I said it before, Our Ladies, Pie Ladies. I'm also a Google Women's Techmaker Ambassador. I'm working here actively on making the community more diverse, on providing role models, on mentoring others, having the open door in a way that there are no dumb questions and there is always something you can help someone with. So, like actively pushing people and sharing experiences, sharing like some kind of career trajectory, something like that. And that's what I'm doing. Plus, that's one side of the coin. And the other side is obviously also tech education. So, I'm doing that a lot by providing accessible content in the form of blog posts, but also giving workshops, giving talks, doing variety of different things to bring more people into the field.
Amazing. And thank you for all your work. You're such a role model, and it definitely is going to make a lot of difference.
Thank you. I hope so.
I know that. I feel that. Let us now move on to another hot topic in business today, which is work life balance and mental health. You have undoubtedly a busy lifestyle. How do you take care of yourself to maintain a good mental health?
To value the time after work a lot. Coming from academia, I know how working a lot can be like, and I appreciate my free time after work. My work laptop is closed down and it's just me. I do a lot of running because it helps to free my head. And I should do it more often because every time I'm going for a yoga class afterwards, I'm like, it's magic. That's nice. My brain is sorted. Everything is free, but I'm not doing it that often like this year, but I used to do it a lot in the past and it always helped me.
And have you ever experienced burnout?
No, not burnout specifically, but I mean, as I said, I've experienced like very long working weeks and hours, particularly during my PhD. And it really taught me to pay attention to myself and to also pay attention to the time that I spend and with what I spend it.
What is your advice on how companies can create a more mentally healthy workplace in the new now?
First of all, it's obviously like the work-life balance and to live it, to value people's after work hours as being after work. That's what it is. We need time to recharge our energies and batteries, and everyone works differently, and to value those differences in reality and not just on paper. I think those are important things to do.
And based on everything you've told us about yourself, what would you say motivates you every day to get out of bed?
I think it's two things because first of all, I mean, it's the mission you're working for. Like I enjoy building products that people use. Probably have overemphasized it during this episode, but it is. And then the second thing is the work environment you're in. So I enjoy being in teams that have a really positive can do attitude because those are the people that you're surrounded with by a large share of your day. And having this kind of positive energy and also there are days when people are down, but when there are teams that are inspired and really want to go forward, this is something that pulls and pushes in addition to like, hey, we're building cool things.
I can hear you love what you're doing and you're so passionate about it. And I'm sure you're great at it. Now, let us wrap up with a few words of wisdom and a piece of advice for our listeners. So, Cosima, what is the best piece of advice you've been given that has helped you during setbacks in your role and career?
Life goes on. I mean, you can learn from everything. There's always something positive in it, even though you don't realize it in that specific moment, but it is what it is. And really, I mean, it sounds simple, but life goes on.
And then what's the worst advice you ever received, and how did you tackle that?
I remember when I was a student, I think I was in my early 20s. I did an internship. I attended a meeting, and you're focused, concentrated. Smiling is not the thing that you're doing at that point because, I have to process what is happening there and so on and so forth. And then, like, after the meeting, one of my colleagues, he approached me and he was like, maybe you should smile a little bit more. That looks good. I was like, what? It really took me by surprise. No one has ever said that to me before and afterwards. And it took me some time to reflect on how inappropriate it was and how much it reduces you to your physical appearance. At that time, I didn't really react to that. I was like, okay. But it taught me a lot, like later on, that this is definitely not okay. And this is definitely not how people should look on you, that you're more than just your physical appearance. So smiling a bit is definitely the worst advice you could give, at least in this specific setting.
Or you can hear what I've heard, you smile too much.
Yes, that's also not good. You're more than just the outer thing of your body. It's so much more behind that, and people need to realize that.
And is there something you wish you would have known, or a skill you wish you had when starting out in the tech industry?
Yes, coming from a political science, social science background, not having the tech background per se, but I had a lot of statistics, and that's something that helps me a lot in my everyday work and what I like. But always felt like, okay, you should be pushing more for the tech topics. You should be going more for the super complex tech thingies. So I've been doing that, and I would do it again. But social skills are so undervalued. And they're so important when you're working with people. So I think what I wish I would have known and what I wish I would have accepted if someone had told me that is invest in your social skills, invest in communication skills, invest in those things because they really make the difference.
And if you had the ability to go back in time to when you were just at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
You cannot see everything. I have been and I am still pushing to see everything, but you can't, but still keep pushing for it and also advocate for yourself because likely no one else will do it. If you're lucky, people will do it, but don't take that for granted. Take your own career, your own trajectory and advocate for yourself.
And what advice will you give to young girls, women of color, non-binary and transgender who try to break into STEM fields today, especially wanting to become next generation leaders and founders?
Go for it. We need more of you and don't be demotivated if there's a pushback because they will be there and the field is still not as balanced and we might want it to be. And that's a big, big, big plus. It gets better. And also those networks like Pi Ladies, R Ladies, Women Tech Makers, and many, many, many more, they are out there for a reason. So go get there. Those are fantastic people. Get your support and also get other perspectives.
Last but not least, Cosima, what is next for you in your role as a data scientist and career in tech? What are your career aspirations?
I do enjoy working at the intersection where you work conceptually, holistically, leading teams, but still having this kind of hands-on implementation part, which I love to dive into those. I've done that for the past couple of years. I've led teams. I've thought broader for company visions. And I deeply enjoy doing that. And I want to continue that. I want to continue building cool product, leading teams that are like more diverse than we could probably think of right now. That would be amazing. And then kind of having this combination and eventually contributing to a world, to have a better world is something that pushes me every day and is something where I strive for.
Very inspiring. I look forward to follow your journey for all the projects that you're going to be involved and definitely for the amazing work that you are doing in the DIB community space. So thank you very much, Cosima, for being a guest on the Queens of Tech podcast, sharing your journey without a doubt, inspire change, and reshape company culture for the next generation of women of color, non-binary and transgender leaders and founders in tech.
Thank you. And thank you so much for hosting the podcast and for having me. It was wonderful.
Thank you for listening. For more podcast episodes and to learn more about the Queens of Tech initiative and to support us, visit queensof.tech.